patent that, you should sell it, make $1 million. It costs a lot of money to get something like this off the ground. Business plan, a licensing presentation, and a patent. You'll be on the hook for $30,000 or $40,000. Holy crap. There was no guarantee anybody was gonna buy one anyways. I still wanna do this. And nobody is gonna buy your product. We've gone bankrupt. I was back to square one. I sold one. I don't know if this thing's gonna fly or fail. Sold over $10,000 worth in one weekend. That was a good weekend. What's the one thing in this world that you absolutely love to do? Or maybe the more important question is, how do I take that one thing that I do on evenings and weekends and holidays and turn it into the thing that I do? That's the question. My name is Arliss McNally. I'm a husband, a father, a brother, a hunter, and the inventor of the Bowkaddy bow rack system. And this is how I made my mark in the outdoor industry. I think I had a fairly normal childhood. Had a backyard sandbox, swing set, teeter-totter that Dad made. We had probably the best toy ever made. Remember those? Don't you wish more kids still played with picker toys? And a baseball glove. Anyway, I liked making stuff. So the first big invention that I had was a pitching machine. Well, actually, it was more like a catching machine. It was pretty atrocious, actually. I built this wooden frame, about 2 feet by 4 feet, and I nailed a gunny sack on the back of it with a hole in the bottom. The idea was to throw a baseball and hit this target that would be stopped by the gunny sack, and the ball would fall out. And I had this really monstrous contraption that I pulled the string and the ball would lift up this pole base thing, and then it would slide down this runner of old eaves troughs. And even at the time, I was too embarrassed about it to let Mom take a picture. In hindsight, it would have been pretty cool to show you, but no, it wasn't happening back then. And then I gotta tell you about forts. You know, I actually feel sorry for kids that don't get to make forts nowadays. We made a ton of them. And when I say we, I mean myself and my first cousin, Dallin. And we made forts in everything. We made forts in bushes, forts in snowbanks, old machinery. We had a combine fort, and of course, tree houses. Well, one of us grew up and one of us didn't, apparently. In fact, if you want to go for a little walk, I'll show you a tree house that I made for my kids. Yeah, for my kids. And for my grandkids that I don't have yet. So I'm pretty proud of the treehouse I made for my grandkids. It's got 2 stories, 3 ladders, a fireman's pole, a swing, a big deck. And there's one other cool thing I gotta show you. It's in the main floor closet. Okay, let's see if it's still in there. Aha, just where I left it. So this, to the layman, looks like a stick, but to Dallin and I, this was a weapon. We would scour the woods looking for a stick that looked like a spear, club, a gun, basically anything we could find that was pointy or heavy enough to fend off the imaginary enemies that were attacking us all the time. As we got older, our weapons got better. My first compound bow was a Martin Tiger. Dad shot an old Ben Pearson bow, and Dallin had a really cool little junior Browning bow, which I remember being quite jealous of back then. We'd all get together in the hay yard and we'd shoot at bales for hours. There was nothing cooler than hanging out with the dads, shooting our compound bows. So Dallin and I grew up about 1.5 miles apart. We spent most of our youth rendezvousing at one of the many pastures between us and around our farms. And we would hunt gophers. Oh, sorry. To the non-Western Canadian people watching this, Richardson ground squirrels. If you want to go down that gopher hole, watch this video. Kind of a long story, don't want to get into it. I'm going to call them gophers. So Dal and I would go hunting gophers. Younger, we had to take our bikes. As we got older, we got to take the truck. We were out in pasture, walking around, and we find this gopher halfway between us and the truck. We didn't want to hit the truck, so we moved over a little bit. And I don't remember who shot, but I do remember the arrow missing the gopher, skipping past it, taking a hard left off a dirt mound, and then another hard left, and next thing you know, this arrow is wedged in the tire between the rubber and the rim. I don't think I ever told Dad that story. Those were special times, though. It really nurtured my desire to be outside, in the great outdoors, with all of God's creatures, pitting skills and matching wits against them. The rabbits, the coyotes, the deer, the bear. So back before the world ever heard of the internet or Amazon, if you wanted something, you couldn't just Google it. You had to look in either the Sears catalog or the Cabela's catalog. This was before Cabela's moved to Canada. And if it wasn't in either of those two places, you basically had to build it yourself. I wanted something I could bolt in the box of my truck that would hold my bow. Up until then, the best thing we had come up with was to use a couple old tires that we would put in the back of the truck. I don't know, for some reason we seem to have a bunch of old tires kicking around. And it worked okay until you hit a big bump and your bow went flying. Keep in mind, the bows back then were worth a couple $100. They still didn't appreciate being bounced around, and the bows of today definitely don't appreciate being bounced around. People would say, well, why don't you just use a case? Just go get yourself a hard case. Well, I had a hard case and I didn't like using it because every time I did, I had to take the quiver off my bow, put the arrows in the little foam slots, and it was just a hassle. I couldn't put the bow in the case and close the case. It wasn't that easy. I wanted something a little more handy. So I built my own. So here it is, my truck box bow holder thingamajigger. I'm almost embarrassed to show it to you. This is the very first version of the product that we now know today as Bowkaddy, but back then it didn't even have a name. All I did was take some square tubing, some plate, and some bar stock. I don't even think I could weld at the time, so I think I must have requested the services of one of my uncles and they welded it together for me. I don't even know how much it weighs, but if I ever lose my boat anchor, I'm just gonna tie a rope onto this thing. I mean, it's a beast. But it seemed to work okay. You backed out this little wing nut, take the bolt out, and you'd swing the arm around and you'd lock the arm back into position and you'd put the wing nut back on, and you would fasten it above your wheel well. I had wooden box liner back then and it was pretty easy using leg bolts. The soft foam that I glued in there was very protective of the limbs and held the bow in really well, and when you hit a bump, the bow didn't go anywhere. So I thought, heck, thing works, right on. Built a couple of them, spray painted them black, threw them in the back of my truck, started using them. And I kind of thought that was the end of the story. Little did I know that was actually the beginning of the story. I found myself sitting in an engineering classroom at the University of Alberta, and the whole purpose of this one course was a group design project. They gave us a sheet of Lexan, which is like clear plastic, a meter-long acrylic rod, some string, some glue, and a little electric motor. And the goal was to mold all this stuff into a machine that would take as many little metal blocks shaped about the size of a Jenga block. So you had to put as many of these on your machine sitting on a table over here, and you had to get that machine onto the top of another table over here. Final score was determined by the amount of weight you took multiplied by the distance between the tables. Long story short, our design failed miserably. But I did learn one thing though. A design will be as good as it's going to ever get several times before it actually is. Sometimes it never is. So all this time people were telling me, oh, you got a cool product, you should really patent that, you should sell it, make $1 million. I'm like, yeah, that all sounds great, but it costs a lot of money to get something like this off the ground. Was I gonna build a factory, start making these things myself and selling them? There was no guarantee anybody was gonna buy one anyways. So knowing I couldn't afford the whole manufacturing route myself, I decided to go down the licensing path, which means I take my idea, protected of course by a patent, and sell it to another company for a technology transfer fee and a per unit royalty. I don't have to invest a huge amount of money. They'll take some of the risk with me, and I make a little bit and they make a little bit and everybody's happy. But in order to get there, we had to get a business plan, a licensing presentation, and the patent itself. But before I could do any of that, I had to improve the product. I went and took my heavy, mild steel model and I built another one out of aluminum. Besides being a lot lighter than the predecessor, it had a little pin here that you could pull out and then you could pivot it around. And it actually had multiple angles that you could lock it in, because not every bow is the same. The other improvement was that it had a pin in the base that you could now pivot, 3 different locking positions in the base. And that, was as good as it was going to get, right? So I found a company in Edmonton called CLC, Concept Licensing Corporation. They thought the product was worthy of their time and attention. So they said, look, we'll get all those things for you, the business plan, licensing presentation, and the patent, and you'll be on the hook for $30,000 or $40,000. I'm like, holy crap. So I had to chew on that for a while. I ended up getting some investment money, scrounged up some of my own money, and I wrote them a check, started waiting for months and months. And then one day I finally got a business plan, which said, we've done all the research. There's like 6 million bow hunters in North America. So if we only sell to 1% of them, this is how many we're going to sell, and this is how much money we're going to make. Adding up to be a pretty positive outlook. They did the business plan, and I got a few copies of a licensing presentation that they had pieced together. I was waiting for the critical piece, which was the patent, and I got a letter in the mail one day from CLC, and they said, we apologize, but we've gone bankrupt. That was a hard pill to swallow. So it took me a while to recover from that, emotionally and financially. I did not have a lot of money. I got my Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I moved to Red Deer, started my career in the oil patch, and I got married. So needless to say, paying student loans, paying for a new vehicle, and a wedding ring. Money well spent, honey. The patent was worth about $15,000, I think, at the time. I had to restart that process with a different company. In the meantime, I thought I would try and find a company that would read my licensing presentation. And I sent that to a bunch of companies, and one replied back. It was Russ Freeman from Cobra Archery down in Arizona. Said he was interested in looking at the product and doing an analysis and seeing if it was going to work for them. So I sent them one of these aluminum models, and they looked at it and they said, it's a cool product. I think you would sell some, but it's not for us. We think it's too expensive to make, and in order to turn a profit, you're going to have to charge so much money that you're going to price point yourself out of business. Eventually came to terms with the fact that if this was going to become a reality, I had to do it myself. I was back to square one. I had this product and I had a licensing presentation that apparently wasn't working out for me, and I didn't have a patent yet. So I found another company. I started down the road of getting this patent again, and a gentleman named Vince Kehoe was the one who finally ended up getting me the patent. I was pretty happy the day it showed up. It was granted on its first review, and it had 15 unique claims. I wasn't going to make it out of aluminum because it was too expensive to fabricate and to weld and all this stuff, so I turned my thoughts to plastic, and I started doing some research. We had the internet by this time, so I was able to find an online system that you could upload your drawings, and it would direct the drawings to different companies that were also subscribing to this website. Lo and behold, I get this message one day from a company called Great Central Turf in Illinois. and they said, we can make you some molds for your product. And the quote that they gave me was like a fraction of what every other company had quoted me. And I started thinking, are these guys crooks? Like, what are they trying to scam me with this cheap mold? And I said, how do you guys plan on doing this? And they said, it's simple. We get them made overseas. This gentleman had a Chinese partner. They travel back and forth between China and America all the time, and this is how they do business. So at the end of the day, I said, yes, Bruce, let's do this. Please go ahead and manufacture some molds, and let's start making Bowkaddies. Adapt or die is something I learned very early on. My very first bracket was the pickup bracket. A couple pieces that kind of fit together, and this slid up and down, and you would tuck that under the rail of your truck, and this would sit on top of your wheel well, and then your Bowkaddy bolted onto there. I was put in touch with this archery aficionado who lived in southern Alberta and ran a store, and I was telling him about my product and how it's going to make things so much easier for hunters that carry their bow in the back of their truck. He told me nobody carries their bow in the back of the truck, and nobody is going to buy your product. Pretty blunt, but if you could figure out how to put it on a quad or four-wheeler ATV, then you could sell them. If I sold 10 of these things, I'd be surprised. I probably made more money taking all my inventory to the scrap iron dealer than I did selling these brackets. Turned out he was right. I've never been the world's biggest pie fan, but I can tell you something. Humble pie tastes like shit. The original plan for Bowkaddy was to mount in a pickup bed, but it has evolved into a very popular accessory for ATV and UTV owners. So in the beginning, there was Honda, Yamaha, and Arctic Cat. And then along came Polaris. And they were different because they didn't use the conventional tubing style racks that the others did. Polaris came out with their composite rack system. And except for a few years when they included parallel metal rails in the rack, my ATV bracket was useless to them. Their only option was to drill holes in their composite, and that usually wasn't a good option for them. So that hurt me a little bit. So while I was losing market share with the Polaris Sportsman situation, there was another off-road evolution in the works. Polaris Rangers, Yamaha Rhinos, Arctic Cat Prowlers, they all had one thing in common: vertical bars in the back of their roll cage. So I invented the double bar UTV bracket. But then things changed again. The interior channels of the roll cage either disappeared altogether, or they turned from round to square to rectangle. It made it tough for my U-bolts to fit on there with the UTV bracket. So back to the drawing board again, and I come up with something called the So with the single bar bracket, I thought, finally, I have a universal one-size-fits-all bracket. Kind of like this hat. One size fits all, and it's either too tight or too loose. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, the best design is often the simplest. I really wished that the off-road machine manufacturers would simplify or standardize things just a little bit and keep them the same for a few years. Is that too much to ask? And with a burgeoning accessory market, they did. They started going to these quick link adapters. It has been a challenge for me to keep up with the changing designs of off-road machines over the years, but equally as challenging has been keeping up with the ever-evolving dynamic landscape of bow and archery equipment manufacturers as well. The original patent on Bowkaddy had several unique claims, which confined the compatibility to bows that would fit within the geometric limits of the system. And at the turn of the century, this was every single bow that had ever been made. Then along came Matthews. Somebody decided that maybe a bow would have more power and more stability if the riser was longer and the limbs were shorter and more parallel. Z7 or Z7, depending which side of the border you're on. It was their flagship product, parallel limbs. They were so parallel, it fell outside of the geometric limits of Bowkaddy. Everybody was coming up to me with these bows and saying, how come it won't fit in my Bowkaddy? So I went back to Great Central Turf and I said, look, I need to redo my molds. I need to make it longer, bigger, heavier. Number one, it's larger. 2, it's stronger. And 3, the new Bowkaddy is more compatible. The best bow rack you can buy is now even better. I'm going to show you exactly how strong the Bowkaddy is. Well, I've got the old 955 out here, built a little, looks like a scale, but it's going to tell me exactly how much weight those limbs can support. Well, we've run out of scrap metal and we're almost out of daylight, but we've got a few tools here from the tool truck. It was supposed to break before now. If this doesn't do it, I don't know what will. So for as long as Bowkaddy has been around, which is quite a few years now, people have asked me, how do I carry my bow on my bike? And I'm happy to say that last year I released my very own fit for purpose bike bracket. I'll never forget my first trade show, the Calgary Boat and Sportsman Show. 100,000 square feet of outdoor awesomeness, 25,000 hungry buyers. Don't quote me on those numbers. There was a lot of people, there was a lot of space. There was me in my little 10 by 10 booth, my quad, my stack of product. I sold 1 unit. 1 unit. Guy must have felt sorry for me. In fact, I remember him saying, I'm actually surprised to see a hunting booth here. Usually this is more of a fishing show. I'm like, oh, it would have been nice to have known that. Packed up my booth and I went home and licked my wounds, got ready for the next trade show, which was in Red Deer. And I think I sold 6 units there. And I followed that up with the Edmonton Boat and Sportsman Show. I think I sold 2 dozen. At any rate, I had paid for my booth and made a little bit and I was happy. I'm like, this is great. I actually really enjoyed the trade show circuit. I love talking to people who enjoy the outdoors as much as me. I mean, you get the odd tire kicker that is only there to tell you about the big deer he shot last fall. But as it turns out, some people will actually give you their money for your product. I knew I was onto something when Wild TV organized the very first Hunt Fest show. By this time, I was accustomed to taking a truckload of product with me and then taking 3/4 of it back home with me. I'll never forget, the morning I pulled in to get set up, there was already literally hundreds of people lined up to get in when they opened the doors. And the first day, I had sold enough to pay for my booth. By the second day, I was looking for a new invoice book because I had went through all my invoices. And by day 3, I was sold out completely and waiting for a buddy to bring me more product from home that I could sell. And I ended up selling most of that too. Sold over $10,000 worth in 1 weekend. That was a good weekend. The first prototype was made in 1995. It took a full decade of humming and hawing, soul searching, redesigning, fundraising, business planning, and decision making before I ever sold a Bowkaddy. But 10 years later, I sold my first one. And you know who bought it? I've had the pleasure to meet and work with the best in the industry, people that have actually made the outdoor industry their livelihood, and I look up to every single one of them, from TJ Schwanke and Richard Mellon, who I met at my very first trade show, to Scott Sterling and Helgi Amundsen and Ryan Kohler, all the old Wild TV guys. Cody Robbins, the icon, Jim Shockey. Karen and I actually visited Jim's Hand of Man Museum last fall when we were out on Vancouver Island. And if you're ever in that part of the country, you definitely have to put that on your list. And let's never forget the passion, charisma, and genuine nature of the late, great Jason Peterson, who actually made my very first commercial.
Introducing the newest and safest way to carry your bow.
Bowkaddy. No more bungee cords or bulky hard cases.
Proud to say was on TV for a few seasons with his show Hunting Canada and Beyond. Sadly, Jason was killed flying his ultralight in 2018 near Grand Prairie. And man, I miss that guy. He was the real deal. The ATA shows, we'd see people like Blake Shelton, Randy Travis, Ted Nugent, Lee and Tiffany. That's probably enough name dropping. Ralph and Vicky, I'll stop. But suffice to say, it's been a fun ride. I've sold about 5,000 parts, including Bowkaddies, combo kits, brackets, and covers. I've shipped product to over 500 towns and cities across North America, and the product is still very much unknown. I hear from people all the time that say, "Man, I've been looking for a product like this for years. Thank goodness I found you online." I haven't advertised very much over the last few years outside of my website, my Facebook page, and my YouTube channel. I believe there is still a very much untapped market out there for this product. Over 90% of my sales are from the United States, the lower 48 mainly. And considering that my manufacturing and warehousing and shipping is centralized in Illinois, it's not a stretch to think that the future of Bowkaddy will reside south of the border, where it's easier to attend trade shows and work with the manufacturer, and shipping is simpler and cheaper, and there's 10 times more people down there to sell it to. I've been living the dream for 25 years, but maybe it's time to wake up. I believe there's more chapters to be written in the book of Bowkaddy, but I'm willing to let someone else hold the pen. And it's taken me a long time to say that. If you're still watching this video, then obviously you're interested in how this story ends. Maybe you want to be the one to hold the pen. Besides, I have a new dream to chase.
Drum roll.
From deep woods to deep water, 40 below to 40 above, we promote the passion and honor the legacy.
Daddy, you'd be proud.
Our lines of time are traced in the great outdoors,
And this is our pen.
My brother and I started Bloodline Adventures 3 years ago, and it's taken up a lot of our time making videos and sharing it with the world on our YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook channels. That's where my efforts are now. That's where my heart is now.
That's the game. That's the game.
And if you're one of the thousands of people that parted with your hard-earned money to buy a Bowkaddy from me, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You helped an old boy ride out his dream. But that dream is not dead. I hope it goes to the moon, and I'm not going to be the one to ride that ship though. I'm going to be on the Bloodline Adventure ship. So if you think that you would like to become a part of the outdoor industry, then maybe this is the opportunity that you're looking for.
You can take a chance and try once more. Don't let your worries weigh you down, down, down. You can still take flight, although you're earthbound.